Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup, Stage 2, Week 4 results. Okay, so, a big congratulations to the Dallas Fuel for hosting the first home games of the Overwatch League, and although we did have a blackout on the first day, midway through the first map of London Spitfire and Paris Eternals game, it was completely out of their control. I felt really sorry for Dallas Fuel. It was out of their control. It was an area-wide blackout. And there was nothing they could do about it, but the arena lost power for about 40 minutes, I believe. The stream was out anyway. But that was completely out of Dallas's control. And I felt really sorry for them, because the rest of the event was absolutely spectacular, but I'll get into that in a minute. Let's go through our results. So, we had the EU Derby to start off the homestand. It was the Paris Eternal taking on the London Spitfire. Now, we had this fixture in Stage 1, but the one in Stage 1 was actually a win for the Paris Eternal, which was an upset in the first week. But this time, London Spitfire do get their revenge, and not only that, they absolutely trample all over the Paris Eternal. 4-0 for the London Spitfire. Big, big win for them. And it really does make them favourites to go through to the stage playoffs. And they had to rely on some other results and their later fixture in the week to try and nail that spot down. Next up, we had the Hangzhou Spark taking on the Chengdu Hunters. Now, I had this down as a win for the Chengdu Hunters, but I tell you what, this week and last week we are seeing a resurgence for the Hangzhou Spark. They beat the Chengdu Hunters 3-1. This result caught me off guard somewhat, and it really does put Hangzhou in a really good position to try and get into those stage playoffs. But Chengdu weren't out of it yet, and they still had time to claw back a playoff spot if they wanted to. So, the first Texas team was in action after this. This was the Houston Outlaws taking on the Seoul Dynasty. Houston have had a torrid stage, and that continued against Seoul, losing 4-0. Houston. What do we say about Houston? I don't know, really. They're not there. They're not there. It's what I expected from Houston at the start of the season. My power rankings kind of explain that. I didn't think Houston were going to be that good this year. And it's turning out that way. The improvements haven't worked. The meta doesn't favour them either. They can't play Lynx or on Widow all the time. They can't play Jake on Junkrat all the time. Although Jake's Pharah is looking okay, but not to Jinmu standards. I think that's what we judge Pharah's by at the moment. Seoul Dynasty though, big win for them. Big win for them in their stage playoff hopes. And then we come to the homeboys in action. Yes, Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Dallas Fuel. Did anyone expect this to go any other way but a 4-0 for Dallas Fuel? The walkout and the introduction of the Dallas Fuel team and the crowd's reaction to it was absolute insanity. Incredible. Just incredible. Like, I don't think we've seen much like it. The problem with the grand finals was the fact that no one reacted like it because it wasn't a home team. But there was a big reaction at the grand finals, and it's the only thing I can compare this experience we saw at Dallas to. That's for sure. Absolutely incredible. Well done to the Dallas Fuel fans for putting on a real good show. And to Houston fans. There's a lot of Houston fans there, mind it. It was in Texas. So, moving on to the next day of fixtures, we had the Hangzhou Spark in action again against the Paris Eternal. Must win for both teams, because whoever loses this, you're kind of looking from the outside in terms of stage playoffs. But Paris needed it really more than Hangzhou did. Hangzhou win this though, 3-2. Close game. Closest game of the week so far. Paris, this is not good. This is not good. It was close. It was very, very close. But Hangzhou, they're showing some resilience this stage with a lot of map 5s and winning out on map 5s. I think they're actually unbeaten on map 5. So they're showing really good resilience, Hangzhou Spark, right now. And that's a really good thing. And Guzhwei is really coming into his own. We're seeing the Guzhwei we saw from the World Cup for Team China. And that is fantastic, because Guzhwei was the arguably the best main tank in the World Cup, apart from, obviously, South Korea's main tank. But, yes, he's looking really, really good. And he's not putting Hangzhou on his back, but he's allowing the team to do so much more. And they're not swapping him out for no smite, which I completely agree with, because if you keep swapping out your main tank, you lose consistency. This is why Fischer left London, because he knew he was never going to get you're not going to keep swapping him in for Gesture. Although I'd love to have Fischer now, so we can swap him in on Reinhardt when we need Reinhardt. But that's another thing altogether. So, moving on after that, we had the Chengdu Hunters in action again against the London Spitfire. If London could win this, they would seal a stage playoff place. Chengdu needed to win it to keep their hopes alive after their loss to Hangzhou. Chengdu, the Kings of Chaos, I think we should call the Chengdu Hunters. Their Hammond, their DPS heavy, weird old comps can bring some really interesting results to the league. And guess what? This is another one. They beat the London Spitfire 3-1. London, they didn't, in my opinion, do an effective job of shutting down Jinmu. Because Jinmu dominated on not only the Pharah, but also Doomfist on Rialto. I don't understand London's mindset. There was a couple of maps, and Oasis sticks out to me especially. They played Birdring on Brigitte into Jinmu's Pharah. I don't know whether, London were thinking, we'll stun the Sombra on the side of Chengdu, but you can also do that with a McCree. And McCree would then be able to not only counter the Sombra, but counter the Pharah that's just raining down damage on you from the sky. It's an awkward unwinningness for London to change comp in that game, which I think really hurt them. When you saw Birdring go to Widow, he did a bit better on certain maps. We saw Double Sniper, we saw all sorts of stuff. Prophet popping off as per usual. Fury eating dragons and grabs and all sorts. But yeah, it doesn't go in the way that London wanted it to. It's no problem for London, because at this time, because of the Hangzhou Paris result, they actually had already qualified for the stage playoffs. So they are now in, alongside the New York Excelsior, Vancouver, Shock and Gladiators, all now locked in because of the results this week. Gladiators were the only team locked in before this week. So we've got a lot that we know now. Moving on after that, we had the Seoul Dynasty taking on the Los Angeles Valiant. This was much, much closer, considering Valiant didn't have the whole of the crowd against them. It's a lot closer, but Valiant do end up succumbing to the Seoul Dynasty 3-2 in the end. It's very, very close. Seoul, I still find that they're inconsistent. Those two wins they should have got. I don't think anyone would bet against Seoul getting those wins, especially against Houston and the state of Houston Outlaws right now. But yeah, I don't know about Seoul's inconsistency. And next week, they have to win games. And the next two games are Vancouver and Hangzhou. Hangzhou fighting for those playoffs, and Vancouver, we all know about. So the last game of the weekend, of course, it couldn't be anything else. It was the Texas Derby. It was Houston Outlaws taking on the Dallas Fuel. Now, most sports derbies go like this. Even though there may be a disparity between the teams, they'll be close. The games will be close because they're fighting with raw passion. If you saw what I mean? There is so much passion in the arena, so much passion in the players, that it'll always be close. Houston will come out absolutely fighting. But in the end, it turns into a 3-1 win for the Dallas Fuel. OG cried at the end. Bless him. There was an exchange of shirts. Also, something else I want to point out. There was an exchange of shirts between Soon and, was it Gouchway? For the Hangzhou Spark in Paris. I loved that. That was beautiful. Really, really good, and I'd love to see more of that. Especially when it comes to home and away games. But yeah, back to Houston and Dallas. I don't think anyone put it past Dallas to win this one. I mean, with most of the home crowd behind them, yes, it was much more half and half than it was in any other game, but they had the majority of the crowd, although Houston did fight for every single scream and shout and everything. Houston gave a good account of themselves, but their ult economy is trash. Their ult usage half the time is trash. There's not much to write home about for the Houston Outlaws right now. They will go up against London next week. They are now sealed out of the stage playoffs with a 0-5 record. Yeah. Will they beat London? Because London have never won against Houston in regular season. Yeah, it's London's bogey team, old Houston Outlaws. So maybe, just maybe, they might get a freak win. But if they do, London, you need to look at yourselves. Because I don't expect anyone in the league to lose to Houston right now. And that sounds harsh, but that's absolutely what I believe. I think Houston at the moment are looking like the worst team in the league. They are now below the Washington Justice. On the same amount of games played and the same amount of losses, they have a poorer map differential than the Washington Justice. They've only won 2 maps all this stage. Something needs to happen at Houston between stages, big time. Dallas Fuel, however, up into 6th. Looking good for those stage playoffs. They're looking in a much more comfortable position than other teams around them as well. When you look at Seoul and Shanghai, Chengdu, Philadelphia, they're in much more difficult positions than Dallas. So Dallas are one of my favourites to get through to those stage playoffs right now. Big up for the Dallas Fuel. But talking of stage playoffs, let's look at our standings for the stage and for the season. It's all getting rather interesting. So, crowning the top of our league right now is the Los Angeles Gladiators, the stage 2 standings I should say. Obviously, because they have played 6 games, they've won them all. They're at the top of the standings. I would expect that to change next week though, because even if Los Angeles Gladiators win all their games, I would expect Vancouver or Shurk to win all their games. And they will have a better map differential than Gladiators can even achieve. So, I don't expect Gladiators to top the standings, although if I'm surprised, then that'll be brilliant. Shurk are in 2nd. They still are absolutely perfect. They didn't play this week, but they are still on that 20 map wins. Nothing else have they lost. It's crazy. Vancouver also not in action this week. They're still in 3rd with a 5-0 record. New York Excelsior also not in action this week with a 5-1 record in 4th. London, however, do drop down to 5th. So New York Excelsior have actually moved up a place because they lost against the Chengdu Hunters. London could actually have ended this week on top of the standings if they'd been able to win against Chengdu, because they would have had a better map differential than Los Angeles Gladiators and played the same amount of games. So, an opportunity missed for London, but I don't think anyone has any questions about that because, well, actually, London could have finished top of the rankings in their... Yeah, actually, that's actually a big loss for London. Anyway, they're through to the stage playoffs and that's all that matters. Then it gets a bit juicy when we head down into these guys, because in 6th, obviously, we have the Dallas Fuel on a 4-2 record with a 3 map differential. So that's actually decent compared to the teams around them. The only team they would have to fear is Seoul Dynasty or the Shanghai Dragons, I guess. But Dallas should be able to see through a stage playoff. I'd be surprised. The team that are at risk on a 4-2 record are the Hangzhou Spark in 7th. And the reason is because they've had so many 3-2 wins, their map differential is -3. So they have to win it purely on games won. And next week they've got, the Shock? I think. The Shock and Seoul? They have to win that Seoul game. If they win against Seoul, they will get through. If they don't, then they're at big risk of missing out. So, Hangzhou, big week for you next week. And I don't know how I've worked that out. They can't play the Shock next week, because they've already played 6 games. Yeah, I'm having one of those days where I just can't compute. Okay, so they're just playing Seoul. So that is going to be a straight playoff, because Seoul have to play Vancouver next week. Seoul are in 8th, and they're on a 3-2 record. So they have a +6 map differential, so they're in a much better position than Hangzhou are, but the problem is they have to play Vancouver. You would expect Seoul to lose to Vancouver, so that would put Seoul on a 3-3 record, meaning they would have to beat the Hangzhou Spark to get into the playoffs. So the Hangzhou Spark Seoul Dynasty game at the end of next week will be an absolute blockbuster, and not one to be missed. So moving on, we have the Shanghai Dragons in 9th. Shanghai still within a very good shout of getting into those playoffs. 3-2 record with a +2 map differential. One of either Hangzhou or Seoul is probably not going to make it. So that is the opportunity for Shanghai to get in there. Now, it gets a bit more complicated for teams like Chengdu and Philadelphia Fusion. Their map differential is not on their side, nor is their win-loss ratio on a 3-3. Although, it's kind of worse for the Fusion, because they have to play Shurk next week. So, it's difficult for those guys to get into it. There's also a few more teams that can get into it, but they are really rank outsiders right now. This is the Boston Uprising in 12th with a 2-3 record on a -7 map differential. It's very unlikely for the rest of these teams to get in there, but they still can mathematically do it. In 13th, we have the Paris Eternal on a 2-4 record on a -4 map differential, joint with the Atlanta Reign in 14th, with a 2-4 record on a -4 differential. You can swap them either way, it depends on how the league work it out. I think they actually work it out on map wins, which in that case I think Atlanta should be above Paris. 15th, we have the Los Angeles Valiant. They're working back from where they were, but on a 2-4 record, it's unlikely they will reach the stage playoffs on a -7 map differential. And the last team that are mathematically still in it are the Toronto Defiant. In a much worse position than they were last stage, on a 1-4 record in 16th. And a -9 map differential. It's looking very, very unlikely for Toronto to be able to get there. But you never know. You never know. Then, obviously, we have the teams that are already out of it. In 17th, we have the Guangzhou Charge on a 1-5 record with a -15 map differential. In 18th, we have the Washington Justice, 0-5 record with a -12 differential. Houston Outlaws in 19th with a -15 differential and a 0-5 record. And then the bottom of the league, we have Florida Mayhem, who we didn't see this week, on a 0-6 record and a -13 differential. And believe me, I actually have Houston to finish bottom of the league right now in Stage 2. So, Florida, there might be a reprieve from your long stay at the bottom of my rankings. Okay. And the question is, next week, will Vancouver finally lose? Because, note, outside the Overwatch League, Runaway did get their first loss in God knows how many months. So, it could be Vancouver's turn. They're the only team in the world with that sort of record right now. So, we will see. But, on a final note for this video, it's been a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but I just wanted to say a big, big thank you to the Dallas Fuel and Team Envy, who put this whole thing on in Dallas. And we had the first homestand, and it was absolutely awe-inspiring, to be quite honest with you. And it gave us a glimpse into what we will see next year. Next year, everyone will play at home. And I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. The atmosphere at that arena, the Allen Event Center, was insanity. I could barely hear the casters from time to time. It was that loud. And I think it's a great template. Yes, there were some production hiccups, but that's to be expected when this happens for the first time. The same as there was production hiccups when the Overwatch League first started last year. You've got to expect this. Don't give the league a ribbing for it. Don't give Dallas a ribbing for it. But it will get better as it goes along. And next stage we will go to Atlanta. And then the stage after that we go to LA. Then we'll have the grand finals. God knows where that will be. And then you'll be playing home games. London will play in London and Paris will play in Paris. And I know from the World Cup, what Paris fans are like and what French fans are like. Jesus, that will be one hell of a place to go, believe me. But I'm going to leave it here. A big thank you for Dallas Fuel for the Dallas Fuel Homestand, the first home games of the Overwatch League. And we will look forward to week 5, which will be the last week of stage 2 and a very crucial week at that. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.